Hi, welcome to the podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Today, in Unit 1, the concept of education, let us start our conversation on the topic education as learning, what children want to know. Education is commonly understood as confined to information essential for an individual to live intelligently as a useful member of society. This implies the perpetuation of basic information in schools that tends to get monolithic and uniformized. In corollary, educational curriculum needs to be revised regularly in order to cope with social change and all that it needs to enable an individual to be of use to society. It is only natural then that the children compete with others and seek to establish their own credentials and potential for learning more rigorously than others. There is much talk about how to universalize education and make it more effective and efficient. Holt attacked the system of compulsory and competitive education, entailing the system of compulsory and competitive education, which brought with it the system of rewards and punishments. According to him, the conventional practice of education was the most authoritarian and dangerous of all the social inventions of mankind. It is the deepest foundation of the modern and the worldwide slave state, in which most people feel themselves to be nothing but producers, consumers, spectators, and fans, driven more and more in all parts of their lives by greed, envy, and fear. What needs to be done then? Well, following him, the education system in its present form needs to be done away with, more so because it constrains an individual to an extent that his or her innate potential and capabilities get curtailed. This means that the basic right to take decisions about oneself, to control the mind and thought, to explore and experience the world and make meanings of one's life are conveniently handed over to the external agency, the education system. Such an education system that exercises complete control over a child prepares the groundwork for raising slaves rather than vibrant, socially and mentally independent, intelligent adult driven by greed, envy, and fear. Does this imply that one person should not interact with another or seek to influence another person's thought and behavior? Is it possible to live in complete social isolation? Certainly not, because in the course of our daily life we meet and interact with several people and often touch and change them, sometimes marginally and at other times substantially. Alternatively, we are also shaped and influenced by others. What is important is the conviction that we should not put others in a situation in which they feel compelled to be influenced by us. In essence, we need to allow an individual to accept or reject our viewpoint and make sure that his or her freedom to choose is not curtailed. In the context of education, the argument is in favor of encouraging the children to learn what they most want to know rather than cram their minds with bits and pieces of essential knowledge that we think would be of relevance to them. Holt refers to this as real learning or true education. True education is acquired by the way of doing things rather than by learning things, which then cannot be imparted fully in schools which are identified as places of learning. The fact of matter is that true education comes from the experience. We tend to learn, that is, imbibe from what we actually do and experience. We are influenced by the quality of our experiences, the satisfaction or dissatisfaction, as also the excitement and joy or unhappiness that we derive from them. Children who experience humiliation, threat, and unhappiness in school will not be able to learn what the teacher tries to teach. In each, such children do manage to learn something, but they tend to forget it in a short span of 1 or 2 days. Learning is greatly enhanced when the children are filled with confidence, boldness, and the eagerness to know something of earliest idea. Now let us move to the second point, building value in education. Some of the earliest ideas on the concept and meaning of education were those of R.S. Peters, for whom the very term education unfolds normative implications. He explains the concept of education in terms of initiation into the activities that are worthwhile to pursue for their own sake. These include, among others, the pursuit of science, history, literature, and philosophy. An educated person is one who has been able to understand the broad perspectives, characteristics of these disciplines and their influences on other domains as also on human life. The prominent argument is centered on the imbibing of the values and ideas that are worthwhile. Peters maintains that education has the criteria built into it that something worthwhile is being or has been intentionally transmitted in a normally accepted manner. By implication, a person who has undergone the process of education has been essentially transformed for the better. The critical issue at this juncture is the determination of what constitutes worthwhile or what is worth cultivating and pursuing. Peters clarifies that those activities and pursuits are worthwhile which are thought to be valuable. Education, therefore, can be said to have built-in value. This is a positive view of education which takes a position that if any teaching learning enterprise is treated as education, then it must necessarily be valuable, failing which it cannot be treated as education. More importantly, education is not a monolithic concept applicable to chalk and blackboard teaching within the four walls of a classroom. Getting children to make things, showing them how to do things, making them find out and explore our educative processes. A person may not be called educated simply by virtue of the fact that he or she has mastered a particular skill. A person who is educated in a real sense should have acquired understanding of principles for organization of facts. This understanding affects his or her outlook. More explicitly stated, a person who has specialized in a particular discipline may be said to be knowledgeable but not educated till his or her specialization influences his or her perspective on other dimensions of the life. When the knowledge of a person has acquired affects the way in which he or she looks at, understands and explains different aspects of life, the person may be said to be educated. This is what Peters meant when he said that the education has a transformative effect on an individual. An educated person places an issue in a large framework of reality and is committed to the standards imminent in his or her field of interest. It is believed that all forms of thoughts and awareness are characterized by distinctive standards for appraisal. This boils down to the conception of education as all-round development of an individual, for which Peters used the expression education is for whole man. Here we want to close this lecture. Thank you so much for choosing this podcast.